Hi, Coreen.
Hi, Cynthia.
I'm
How
so
are you?
happy. How are you? I'm so happy to have you with us in the International ACIM online conference. And Awaken to Love is the title. And I know if there's something you are 100% dedicated to, then it's Awaken to Love.
No more worthy purpose than that. Yeah, I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you. Thank you for thinking to call on me and to include me in this. I can just feel the family gathering for this blessed event and to be part of it. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
And thanks to Armin and Kendra and to the whole German TTC family.
Yeah. And as I know, I think you grew up with a Christian Science background already, right? So
Yes.
Jesus was with you from childhood on, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's a big piece for me. My background in Christian Science, being raised with just this absolute approach that, there is no matter, everything is spirit, God is infinite, all love. Um, Using or turning to God as the very present help, no matter what the situation is, whether that's a physical illness or financial difficulties, relationship, employment. God has always been the source and solution for everything in my life. And then when I discovered A Course in Miracles, I was so grateful because it seems like Course in Miracles kind of sets the table for the first part of it. Like Jesus meets a single person who thinks he reaches out to the one that thinks they're immortal or human, all alone against the world, and brings them up to you are at one with God. And then Christian Science takes you are one with God. And guess what that means? This is what God is and what you must be as its image and likeness. And so the two just kind of go like this in my mind.
Oh wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Thank you. Love.
it's definitely created who this personification is. It's very deeply important and embedded, and it colors the teachings that come through me.
Yeah. So would you say there was still something like a turning point in your life with regards to A Course in Miracles, or would you just describe it as it completed something, or how did it find you at all?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. I was teaching in California, and I discovered Nook Sanchez's blog. And I was so excited because what that blog was saying was exactly what I was burning about on the inside. It's like I could see how I felt Christian Science was missing a piece. But then when I heard about A Course in Miracles, there were so many people saying that miracles aren't literal, they're metaphors. And I was sitting there going, no, no, no. Healing is literal, and I've had a whole lifetime of experiencing it. And so I beelined it out to New Mexico to be with Nook to say, oh my gosh, look at these two pieces coming together. And Nook already had the literal miracle part, and she was disseminating that message.
Yeah.
And when I met Nook, there was a remembrance
Mm.
that we come together to finish a work. And it is that piece of the literalness of what Jesus is telling us and is calling us to do.
Yeah, this word remembering was just what came to my mind, because
Yes.
that's how it feels, when you read something and you feel it in your cells
Mm,
and in your bones, so to say, or in your heart. And
yes.
so it was like a confirmation, and Nook's work was like a confirmation for what you already had been feeling all the time, right?
Yes. Yeah. It
And
was a homecoming feeling.
yeah, and I thought maybe it would be nice to, or can you think of one of your healing experiences, which you mentioned you had a lot of healing experience, and I know that from
Yeah.
you know
Yes.
what would be the first that comes to your mind?
Well, I'll just trust the one that popped into my awareness, but I was studying to take the bar exam to be a lawyer out here in the US, and that's an exam that you study for 6 months, and it's a 3-day exam. And just before the exam, I had been renting a room in a house where everybody in that house had come down with a flu that had lasted them at least 10 days. And so I woke up in the middle of the night and I felt so sick that I had to crawl to the bathroom.
Mm.
And I was on the floor, and in an instant, these thoughts of, you just studied 6 months for a test. They only offer that test twice a year, and you are sick as a dog.
Yeah.
And I knew in that moment that I wouldn't be able to take it. And so I thought, God is the only solution in this moment. No human theory, no magic, nothing is going to help me but God. And so with every fiber in my being, I just reached out to the love that I know God is. And my simple prayer was, God, help me.
Mm-hmm.
And the power of that prayer was because there was no alternative thought. There was no plan B. There was no, it was God and God alone could deliver me from this moment.
Right.
And in that, I felt, if you ever had, like when your foot falls asleep, that tingling in your body, it started at my toes and it went right up through my body and out the top of my head.
Wow.
And a very loving parental voice said, get up and go back to bed. And I stood up and I went back to bed, and I woke up in the morning and I was completely free.
Wow. Yeah, having goosebumps over here when I'm hearing this. Wow, this was a very serious situation for you, you know.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was a desperate situation, but it is because of my reliance on God in the past and being raised in knowing that there are laws of God that govern us that we can rely on, that are more substantive than matter or material, like medication and doctors. And it was just, I can rely on these laws of God and his love for me.
Yeah.
I know how he created me in his image and likeness. And I just leaned fully into that. And it was because I was undivided. That's it. That I can really feel like that was the lesson. It was being undivided in that moment that delivered me.
Yeah. To be fully open and dedicated. Surrender, so to say.
Surrender.
Yeah.
Yes. I think that was it. Just total surrender. There was no Coreen with an idea of, well, if this doesn't work, I can always do that. It was surrendering what I felt was a hopeless situation to an all-powerful, loving God.
Yeah.
That
Beautiful.
prayer never fails.
Wow. Yeah, this is a very beautiful experience to share. And yeah, and I think it always helps to increase trust, you know, when we share such experiences. And
I love testimonies. I think testimonies are so important
yeah,
because they encourage, and they do bring that transfer of trust from fear to love.
right. Yeah, I feel the same. I also love testimonies. And yeah. So, as you said, it's not meant, or it is meant to be literal and not meant to be just, you know, in mind happening or changing your mind about something, or as there are some students of ACIM, you know, who say, okay, the world is just an illusion, so let's be this an illusion, and we don't have to, you know, interact with it in this that's a different way of seeing it, whereas the way you are describing right now is yeah, that to really take it literal. And I mean, when we ask where would you have me go, what would you have me do, and even asking for miracles and expecting them
Yes.
as our birthright, it is, yeah.
Well, we declare that there's only one will, and that's the will of God.
Yeah.
And that will is perfection. And you know, and the great example, or the teacher master, was Jesus Christ, and he never looked upon something that was imperfect and said, well, it's not real, don't worry about it.
Right. Yeah.
He stood right there and looked past the false appearance and gave witness to what was really there, what had to be. Right where a sick person seems to be, he saw the face of Christ. And that seeing is what harmonized the false appearance. Remember, all we're ever looking at is a distortion. It's a misperception. So if it's a distorted view, its perfect representative must be right there instead of the distortion, right? There has to be something to be distorted. So let's look past it. Look through the false five physical sense testimony,
right,
and declare and behold what is there, what God is knowing in that moment.
And the form will follow, right?
Yeah.
The form will follow it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love doesn't take us halfway.
Love does? So can you repeat that?
Love does not take us halfway.
Right. Oh, that's beautiful. That's a very good reminder.
Yeah.
You have very beautiful, wonderful visions from time to time, as I know. And yeah, I'd like to invite you maybe to share one which just comes to you right now when you think of it.
Yeah, well, I shared this one with you previously, but it might be a good place just to start. My very first vision was pretty powerful. I think I was maybe 22 or 23 years old, and I was driving my car on a freeway, and all of a sudden this vision just dropped into my awareness, and it played out like a small mini series, a movie in my thought. But I found myself in a jungle, a very dense woods or forest or something very heavy with vines and trees, and it was so dense that it was so dark I couldn't find my way out. I was lost, and I kept turning around, and I finally saw one speck of light. Yeah. And so I started for that light, and I remember having to lift things off of me. I remember getting cut and hurt, tripping, but I just kept focused on that light. And as I focused on the light and drew closer, the light became bigger. And so I was more encouraged, and I followed it and I followed it. And all of a sudden I broke out or passed this tree line. So the edge of this jungle.
Yeah.
And the most beautiful pale yellow light was flooding this field across the road. And there were a group of women standing there. And they were wearing beautiful dresses, and they had these hats and these gloves and these handkerchiefs, and they were all waving and celebrating and calling. And I thought, what on earth, who are they calling to? And I looked around, and I was the only one standing there, and I said, oh my gosh, it's me. And so I crossed the street to them, and they all gathered around me, and it was a very joyous occasion. And then I turned my head and I looked back across the road. Sorry. And I could see movement back in there.
Yeah.
And in that moment, my heart just exploded, because I knew all I wanted to do was help them out. Like, I'd been there, and to call them forward.
The ones who are still in the woods, in the darkness, right?